Gotta go, don't want Gastown to go boom. What a day, what a deal, what a day.
Beautifully played, boss.
I don't know, man. I just don't know what happened. The country's more divided than ever, inflation like nobody's ever seen, and after the monumental success of Mad Max Fury Road, somehow the newest movie is a box office bomb. It's like, nothing makes sense at all. Just to re-emphasize, I don't have any issue with the Furiosa character, or the idea of a prequel movie. I think I made it clear the strength of Fury Road was not the characterization, or the narrative for that matter, but that doesn't mean there wasn't potential, and I think we all know the failure of this movie has about as much to do with quality as Kathleen Kennedy has to do with human decency. Fact is, nobody wants to watch a movie advertising the girl boss concept. It's proven time and time again to be a bad idea. But the sad thing is, this movie is not that. I don't think anybody particularly asked for a Furiosa-themed prequel, especially after the almost 10-year gap. Bit of production hell going on here. But there's no denying Anya Taylor-Joy did a fantastic job, and like Fury Road, nothing about this feels remotely feminist-themed. I know some people don't like that Mad Max isn't in it. Mad Max Saga may not have been the best of titles, but given the personalities they both displayed in the last movie, I really don't care which one gets to be the lead. Unfortunately, there is going to be the ever so common issue of a lack of suspense, given we know how this ends. But the way I see it, that's kind of a given, so we have to take it for what it is. One big downside is the heavier use of CGI, the fact that this film may be a bit too long at times, but I think it needs to be understood that it's not the same kind of movie. We know it's going to be more story-driven, but the action and cinematic set pieces are definitely more than an afterthought here. If Fury Road is your favorite, you may be somewhat disappointed, but honestly, I don't know why you'd expect that. To me, it's for the most part how it should be, but it does have a few issues that need discussing, some unavoidable, so let's see how they did.
Furiosa!
Title character established. That's a good start. Being a young Furiosa played by Alyla Browne, this would of course be the green place mentioned heavily in Fury Road, one of the few places of abundance as they call it.
She's from a place of abundance. A place of abundance! She's from a place of abundance.
We're looking for a place of abundance.
But after being captured by some raiders to be taken as a prize, we have our somewhat lengthy intro with the quote-unquote predictable conclusion. She's pursued by Mother Mary, played by Charlie Fraser, but given the last movie was about trying to get to the green place, and there was no particular scene mourning her dead mom in that movie, it kind of gives away the end result here. However, to say it's too long in its own right, I don't agree with that. Aside from this questionable subtitle choice, don't know who thought that was a good fit, we get to see Furiosa and her mom for that matter rely on intelligence and quick thinking, opposed to fake physical abilities that don't exist, and Chris Hemsworth's role as Dementus is really the highlight of this movie.
Who do we have here?
I'm not even kidding, I could keep going, show off a montage of his lines, but it's already apparent how great of a character he is, and the true star of this movie. Intimidating, charismatic, every quality you could want is here. If you don't like him, there is something wrong with you. He wants to find this place of abundance, which he's not too keen on sharing the location of, and with all the raiders dead for a number of reasons, and her mom easily breaking in, their goals of finding it aren't looking too good, but again, we already knew that. We also knew the escape wouldn't go too well, but upon giving her a peach pit to remember her by, and insisting she leave her, which in the end she doesn't, the devastating conclusion is enough in my opinion to justify the almost 30-minute intro. If not for the great visuals and lines like this.
Yes, the sorrow is more piquant, zesty.
It encapsulates what this movie is about, and it does it in a way that is both devastating and at no point boring. There's enough here to keep anybody interested, so throw in what may be the franchise's best antagonist, and you have a pretty solid intro. I wouldn't call it unexpected, but how could it be? She ends up being adopted by Dementus, hoping she'll eventually lead him there, and she also very inconveniently writes down her location on her arm, the one we know she won't keep. That's another thing you probably really wanted to know, how the arm gets lost. They do come across a war boy who tells of a
What's abundance?
Don't know why he told them that. So they head there and attempt to overthrow it. Immortan Joe, now played by Latchy Hume, shows off their own abundance of war boys who will gladly blow themselves up, meaning their attack is less than a success, but the dialogue is really good on both ends, his chariot-like ride is already iconic, and it is a unique visual we haven't seen yet. They head to Gastown next, which is again nice to see, it was previously only mentioned, and utilize a Trojan horse-like strategy, which doesn't really work until he kills his own men and make it look believable, and with that, Gastown is essentially commandeered. It's like how you can commandeer the like button by pressing it down below and subscribing if you enjoy. This of course leads to some negotiation with the threat of blowing up Gastown, and you can imagine it's gonna be fun as hell.
Can't hold this much longer!
Oh, you idiot! I've forgotten the numbers.
Get in there, got it. Okay. Whew.
In the end, they get what they want, being more food, more water, supplies, and whatnot. But in return, Joe gets their physician and Furiosa to become one of his wives. It's not quite as bad as you'd imagine, the environment is pretty nice. The problem is, Joe's son Rictus, played again by Nathan Jones, takes a bit of a liking to her, but she escapes by cutting her hair, quickly covering her face, and disguising herself as a boy. This goes on for about a decade or so, pretending to be mute and rising up the ranks. I guess she wasn't missed that much. And upon seeing the creation of the war rig, not the same war rig, but whatever, she devises an escape plan by hiding in the rig on the next supply run.
Terribly ingenious.
This, of course, leads into the first, and in many ways only, big chase in the movie, and it's good. But compared to Fury Road, it can't really hold up. Unfortunately, I just got through watching that recently, so the lack of practical effects is really going to stand out. But if you take that out of the equation, it's definitely not bad. It's still unique and memorable, has a lot of new ideas, and some old ideas I'm glad they haven't forgotten. Which we can't go into because YouTube. And amongst the chaos, her food supply, along with the bike she planned on using, is lost. The driver, plot device Jack, learns that Furiosa is in fact not a guy, but that's okay because as we know, they'll become very close, eventually. And after finishing off the Octoboss and losing almost everybody, it's again made apparent that you don't need unrealistic strength to create a strong female character. Unfortunately, plot device Jack is smarter.
Stop!
Shouldn't have said stop. And the reason I call him plot device Jack is because upon deciding not to leave her there, offering to train her, help rebuild their crew, and escape, well, that's about it. He gets the plot going, and given he is not in Fury Road, I think we know where he's going. We do get to see the bullet farm, in which we find out Dementus has run Gastown into the ground, which makes sense, hinting that Dementus is more skilled at war, and not so much running something.
Everyone's saying it's my fault, or it's everyone's fault. Me, him, the people eater, that idiot bullet farmer.
I really missed him in this movie. As for plot device Jack, they try to give him some character, but that's not happening. So Joe sends him to the bullet farm to collect the ammunition, but it's an ambush, killing everybody but them, because why wouldn't it? She has a chance to escape, but of course doesn't. And despite the heavier use of CGI, the scene is, again, pretty good. There's a lot of memorable ideas. Saving him just in time isn't really one of them. They do manage to get out of there, but are very easily tracked down, resulting in her arm being severely injured. Now we know how that happens. And the scene that follows is pretty brutal. Plot device Jack, having taken the plot as far as he can, meets his slow and painful demise. Furiosa is hung up by her bad arm to watch this, but still Dementus is the show stealer.
The day I acquire Bullet Farm, these two destroy it. No! You two break my heart. You break my heart. You make me the Dark Dementus.
It really is just perfect. Those lines, the scene that follows, it couldn't be better. Only thing is, he didn't realize she probably wouldn't miss that arm too much. She even sabotaged his ride, meaning her star map is now gone, but we knew it wouldn't get used anyway. And upon passing out later, we have everybody's favorite scene, Max's cameo, played by Tom Hardy's stunt double in Fury Road, Jacob Tamuri. That'll surely please somebody. She wakes up with these people, who were in a scene way earlier, and after explaining that she is in fact Furiosa, and that Dementus will attack there next, they set up a trap for him. I mean, it is a bit more complicated than that, leading into the 40-day Wasteland War, but Joe is in the end victorious, and after constructing the new prosthetic arm, she can finally head out to get revenge on Dementus, which has not been the goal throughout the whole movie. Surprising, isn't it? But given the map is gone, that's kind of all that's left, and that makes sense. That's obviously the idea they're going for, and despite the somewhat too long runtime of this movie, I still feel that works, but it does drag a bit toward the end.
Positively shocking.
The problem is, there's no suspense. The remaining men are very easily dispatched, I'd hardly even call it a chase, and upon Dementus being subdued, which granted is going to be a lot of fun.
That wasn't hope, that was instinct.
The end result is questionable. It starts out pretty good, him not having any of it, actively explaining how his death could be less pleasant, but then when we actually see his fate, we get this.
There is a tree unlike any other. Its soil is human. Its nutrients human.
Yeah, I can't say I'm really satisfied with that. I get he deserved it, but for a villain this cool, it could have been something more epic. I don't know, it's kind of dumb. Anyhow, that's about it. We've caught up to the last movie. So that was Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. It's too bad it bombed. As long as you didn't expect Fury Road, I think it's a pretty damn decent prequel for a character nobody really wanted a prequel about. Anya Taylor-Joy really does a fantastic job, along with Chris Hemsworth completely nailing it in every way, but debatably that's not the point of a movie like this, and given we know exactly how it all ends, some of the suspense is going to be lost. Given this is not as action-oriented, the story really does hold it up, and like I've been saying, it is really good for what it is. The great visuals and charismatic acting really help a lot here, and if you can look past the obvious flaws, there is a well-written narrative that goes from wanting to get home to purely seeking vengeance. Yeah, the action isn't as good and there isn't that much of it. It probably could have been a bit shorter at times. The ending is a little bit weird, but similar to The Fall Guy, it is too bad this movie had to fail. Especially because the reason why it did is simply not present here. Girl boss nonsense and unrealistic abilities do not define this character at all. It's quite the opposite. But at this point, sensible people are likely sick of Hollywood period, and the idea of wasting money on a movie nobody wanted to begin with, that probably has something to do with it. As to if I prefer this to Fury Road, I really can't say yet. Given they're vastly different movies, that makes sense, but regardless, Furiosa deserves to be seen. It's one of the better Mad Max movies, even if he's not really in it, and by some miracle, I actually have hope for this franchise. Nowadays, that's not commonly said. I'm the analyst, and remember kids, if you run an empire into the ground, you can't blame somebody else. So, you've made it to the end. That's an impressive feat indeed. Since you managed that, I guess check out the gaming channel, in which I cover a variety of gaming topics, like analysis videos, such as this one. If you're into that, then press the link in the description. It's that simple.